Hey, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. And what we're going to do is another video on trying to give you some tips based on the experience that I have of myself about dating a younger woman, a younger Filipina. So chances are, if you're dating a Filipina anyway, you're coming over to the Philippines probably with the intention of marrying. Let's look at it on a purely Christian basis and say that you're coming over and you're going to marry the person and you're going to live happily ever after. Well, that doesn't always happen, but it is possible. And how can you make it? How can you make it happen? Well, the best chance if you're away somewhere else, I don't know, you might be in, you might be living in California, or or you might be anywhere in the US or the UK or Germany or anywhere. You could be in another foreign country, first world country, and you want to go for what you have discovered or what you have researched as being for some, the best, the finest wives and mothers in the world, depending on your viewpoint. Everybody has a viewpoint. So you'll go online. Now the thing about going online is, if you haven't done this before and you're an even half decent, you have even a half decent photograph, there's a lot of deceit happens on that. So this is part of treading the water, navigating the system online. It's made a lot easier now because of Skype, because you can actually see the person online and you will be able to make some fairly accurate assessments. Not guaranteed, never guaranteed. So what's going to happen if you haven't done it already? It will come as quite a shock to you, because if you're living in a place where getting a date can be quite a hassle. After I got divorced and went to America, I went for 2 years and never had a date. I did have the encumbrance that many would see as an encumbrance of I had a child to take care of. I was a single parent, and it makes life a little more difficult, more challenging. But so if you're going from that situation, you're coming out to the Philippines. In the Philippines, you have a chance, and there is the mind. what I've just talked about in another video. The mind and the heart, where they become involved in the choice. We're talking about the Filipina's position, where if they are not completely mercenary and they're just looking for someone who's got a lot of money and they're going to take them, and never mind all of that, we'll try to deal with that a little in a moment. But if, supposing the person has said, well, I may meet someone who is a lot older than me, and I'm prepared to work with that for the security of being able to support the family that I will have with him. Now that will be an upfront question that you should be asking. If you're coming over here and you've done the family thing, and all that, as far as you're concerned, is behind you, then you've got to make sure that it really is behind the Filipina. Now I've met foreigners who started out on that understanding, and they were very clear up front that they didn't want children. And when it became clear that the man that they were talking to was a decent, honest guy, and maybe not totally rich, but able to provide a secure living, a secure lifestyle, then the younger Filipina is likely to say, okay, I can go without that. A very, very difficult thing for a Filipina to do, because it just seems like they are programmed for childbirth. Now, as an aside, in the Philippines, a child is a blessing, right? An absolute blessing. Unlike being in the West, where often a child is regarded as a burden, and that happens a lot. Well, it doesn't happen so much in the Philippines, although there are horror stories about children being abandoned. When a marriage breaks up, sometimes there are difficulties if there are children, and one of the partners goes there. When they both go their way like this, one of the partners may find someone very quickly, and that someone obviously will have to be available and probably has children of their own, and they're not prepared to accept the children as part their incoming mother will not accept the other children, so they can get abandoned, and we've had that situation in our videos. But let's look at it that's not the case, and that the children are accepted, and well, in the case of the foreigner, you'll find that the children have grown up anyway, and they're not going to be coming to the Philippines with the father. So they're going to be looking at dating probably a younger woman. Now, how much of a difference is that? I'm sure that all the guys out there are going to be, oh, well, that sounds great to me. But there are difficulties. You know, there are difficulties of attitude. There are difficulties of, if you're a mature man and a somewhat accomplished man, if you've led a good work life, have a pension of, if not to live an abundant life, certainly a modest life without hardship, that would appeal to a woman. That was all that I could offer my wife, Beth, when we met. I had to be up front and say, look, I don't have any savings to speak of, but I have a modest pension, and I have a modest pension, a small pension from the UK, and another slightly larger pension from the US. So even though I can't offer, as I'm speaking to Beth, even though I can't offer you an abundant life, I can offer you a life that is secure, and we will be able to live on the money that I get monthly, and we will be able to do that and live comfortably. And as time progressed, it became less and less important anyway. So you might have to decide on leaving all of that behind, as if you've managed to make that a settled part of the deal, part of the relationship. And then you have to work out whether you have the energy for such a relationship. And it depends on what kind of a lifestyle you've had. It depends on the lifestyle that the woman that you are thinking of joining up with, be it in marriage or be it in a common law marriage situation, in that you're going to live together. You've got to decide whether the lifestyle that she has is going to suit the lifestyle that you can offer her. And that's where there is a very, very big margin of error you can really get it wrong there, because if the person comes in and it turns out that they have no ethics, if they have no integrity, no honesty, then yeah, you may lose a lot. And if you ever watched the program Rafi Tulfo, you'll have heard some of the horror stories, which, because of the regularity that foreigners go on and complain to Rafi Tulfo, and I guess they must be quite popular, those particular programs which involve an injured or scammed foreigner, then they may be quite popular interest-wise for the audience. So you'll see them from time to time. I don't believe that it happens a lot, because I do see Filipinas that are much younger than their husband and seem to be quite happy with that. So I'm encouraged by this, because, you know, between my wife Beth and myself, there is probably a record-breaking gap between our ages. As I always say this, that when I first saw Beth, we'd agreed to meet because, well, why not? It was my last day in Cebu. I'd been over for 5 days to see if I could find a place to live that I could afford, and I was going to come and live in Cebu. Not even sure why. I remember speaking to one friend in Mabalacat, where I was living, which is near Angeles, and I said, you know, I have a feeling that I would like the Cebu area, and she said, I would like that. She said, it's a great place. You can go to some really, really interesting places being based in Cebu. So that appealed to me too. But at this time I didn't have a relationship. So I came and I met Beth online, which is really, though we've strayed far from the online aspect of what I'm talking about now. We met online because someone had said this, why don't you look at this person, and like that kind of thing. And so we agreed to meet, and it was my last night in Cebu, and we met and talked. There was an earthquake going on. The aftershocks were every 10 or 15 minutes, so it wasn't an exactly peaceful night, but we found that we got along. But when I first saw her, I said to myself, she's too young, and she looked at me and said, he's too old. I guess we were talking to ourselves, but neither of us was listening, because we've gone on, and we will soon enough, it's not tomorrow, in a couple of months or so, we'll be celebrating 7 years of happy marriage. Now, the thing of being with a younger woman, it does have many aspects to it which are not easy to deal with. Assuming, of course, that you go ahead and you have a great relationship, requiring a great deal of tolerance from the older person. Believe me, Filipinos have their own way of looking at things, and even though it's true that they are the most loving, affectionate partners, they have their quirks too, which is unfortunate for you and me, the other foreigner that's listening to this, you know, because we're perfect, aren't we? But we do come over here with the idea that we're going to teach everybody how to be as great as the people that we've run away from. Isn't that strange? We've actually, in fact, somebody said that to me when I came here. Beth and I had met and we'd married, and the person in a disagreement said, "You ran away. You ran away from America." It's true, I did run away, and I'm happy that I ran away, because the way that things were going in America, I didn't want that kind of life. And one of the people who wrote to me today, I have lots of people write to me, and I get anecdotal viewpoints put to me, or opinions about how things are going in America. And a lot of people feel that it's the regulation which protects them in so many ways is taking away their freedom. So they see the Philippines as a place where they can put that right. And it is true, but of course there are many other places that you can go and experience some element of freedom which is beyond you in America. But the trick when you come here and you are with a younger woman, I think the trick is that you have to be willing to give in a lot. And I find this a lot. But then most men, it is a quirk of being a man that you tend to keep score. You know, well, I gave up on this, and I gave up on that, and I gave up on the other, and I gave up 4 times yesterday, and I gave in. We tend to be calculators, we tend to be counters, and that's not the way to have a great relationship, I don't think. So perhaps one of the main things is don't keep count. Be kind, be gentle, be prepared to watch, and watch in silence as a situation which you are an observer to is something that you simply do not understand. and still maintain your own equilibrium, where you don't lose sight of yourself, don't lose sight of who you are and what you believe in. And a lot of that will be where you simply don't know what's happening. Now, in a lot of cases where I've looked at an ongoing situation, where I haven't had Beth with me, say, and I've looked at a situation and said, no, I got to speak up here. And if I speak up, it will be wrong, because the information that I was receiving, I wasn't able, with my Western kind of thinking, I wasn't able to process it in the way that a Filipino would. And of course, I'm surrounded, or a Filipino, I'm surrounded when I go out, by the nature of where I live, I'm surrounded by Filipinos, Filipinas, and they are thinking as they are conditioned throughout their lives to think. Some things are very important to them, and other things are not. And sometimes they don't match with what a foreigner does and doesn't agree with. So there's a lot of adjustment. And I often think that people say, well, yes, there's a cultural gap. Well, a gap I think of a gap as being something like this. That's a gap, isn't it? Look, there's a gap. The cultural gap is not a gap, it's the Grand Canyon. Okay, so come over, accept that you are the foreigner, accept that you just don't understand what's happening a lot of the time. So my other advice, you keep your eyes open, you keep your ears open, and try to keep your mouth shut for a little while till you find out what's happening. Now, because this is about dating online as well, or have I lost my way, I got 3. A younger Filipina. Try to remember that a lot of what she is experiencing is totally new, and you may have been through it many times. So you will have another, the gap between you at that moment can be Grand Canyon-esque as well. So you're the foreigner, you're living in the Philippines, and you need usually to change. So if you can just hold the peace until maybe the next day, you probably will be finding that you're looking at things totally different. Okay, that's enough from me for now. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.